Stage 1, pressing for flight.
We're go for launch. Let's light this candle.
Yes, sir. Reading you loud and clear. Clear. The clock has started.
The clock has started.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Welcome to Pressing for Flight, live from the Space Coast, where the schedule never holds. I gotta say, Kegel, when you picked that song, the first time I heard it, I was like, I don't know, it's kind of hokey, like on the nose, but it may just be because I'm wearing headphones and just it sounds so good. But
you got those cool shades on.
I got these cool shades on. I got a rocket flying behind me, perpetually flying behind me at all times.
Frozen in time.
I just really like it.
It's a good song.
Does anybody else like it in chat? Do you guys like that song? Should we find another one?
I'm waiting for the owner to hear it one day and be like, you MFers.
He's like, you guys have like 3 subscribers. You should give me some money. Welcome, everyone. With me, I am Stephen Marr. I have a rocket behind me. Did I mention that? With me tonight, I have over here, I have Mr. Matt Cutshaw.
What's going on, guys?
I have
Brady Bunch.
Matthew, Mr. Jordan.
What's up?
I have Stephen, Mr. Kegel.
Hi.
I have Becca, Mr. Penland, who doesn't have a microphone in front of her. Wait, look at this.
I moved it so that we could do this. It's right here.
Gotta keep the bit alive.
I was responsible and it was in front of me. I ruined it.
Matt Jordan is filming his latest rap video.
He went back to the 80s, folks.
Yeah, hey, so we're here, and a week ago, we thought we were going to have a bunch of launches. I guess last week was after after the Delta Scrub? No, it was after the first Delta Scrub. That's right. Okay.
It was.
And
it was a long night for us.
And we thought, once again, we were going to have Launchapalooza. It has come in many forms. Sometimes it's like we're going to have like 4 launches, but they're like around the world and we'll get to see one, but it's kind of neat that there's all that stuff launching. And this was the kind where we were going to have 3 in just a few days here. And then at one point we were going to have 2 within 9 hours.
Oh, that's the dream.
Oh, man. And well, we got 1.
One's enough.
One, yeah, that's all you need.
But the one was cool one though.
It was cool. Well, let's start with our big disappointment on whatever night. I don't know what.
This was Saturday morning at 2:06.
Okay, so Friday night for us people. Team No Sleep. That's right, Daryl. Team No Sleep. I got to squeeze in hours here and there. And that's literally what I was doing. It was just squeezing in a couple hours here, a couple hours there. And I had worked it out where I had, what was it? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off? Or no. Let's see. Yeah. But I ended up
and
working.
You worked Friday.
Okay. Yeah. And then got Saturday off. That's right. Yeah. I ended up doing some switching. But yeah, it's just like trying to get a couple hours here, a couple hours there. This
10, 9, 8, 7,
such a bummer.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff.
Not.
So first off, I do want to point out the abort was not because of all the extra fire you guys are seeing coming up the rocket in that video. Mm-hmm. That is actually a normal thing for this particular rocket because it is a hydrogen oxygen rocket. Mm-hmm. That extra hydrogen catches fire so quickly that it engulfs the bottom portion of the rocket, but that's not why there was an abort.
Yeah, whenever I've shown it to a couple people and they see that and they're like, oh, like no. It's like a thing where it's a purge, right? They they shoot excess hydrogen out or something. And
Yes,
it's before they start flowing the oxygen.
They start the hydrogen before they start the oxygen. Now, it's crazy because it's kind of counterintuitive. Oxygen itself is not flammable. Oxygen, if all you have is oxygen, it's not flammable, will not catch fire. It's only when it touches other things that are flammable that oxygen becomes flammable. Hydrogen, on the other hand, is incredibly flammable all by itself.
Well,
hence Hindenburg.
There were a couple things that were kind of, I think, just misspoken that night. Somebody on the stream, quote unquote, confirmed that the engines did not ignite, but then later on ULA did confirm in a tweet that one of the engines did ignite. And that's not necessarily a reason they had to delay at least 7 days. I'd already watched the Scott Manley video, but he's always spitting out all these smart things. I rewatched it before, and he was mentioning how one of the reasons that they have to scrub for 7 days is because there's a lot of stuff in that ground support equipment that has to be physically replaced. Like the thing that causes the sparks to shoot out, they have to go in and like take those out and put in new ones. And so that takes a certain amount of time.
Those are single use.
Right.
Yeah. And then Toria said, overseas parts they're waiting on as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's the thing, the ground support equipment, especially things that touch the rocket directly, those are single use. Once there is any kind of ignition of the rocket, those have to be replaced.
Right.
It was the same problem every time that it got scrubbed, right? The pneumatics thing or whatever, the ground.
That's part of the problem is that pad has an older pneumatic system on it. And it's just pneumatics are kind of difficult anyway, because that's just pressurized air moving around.
Yeah.
And any kind of leak is going to cause a low value. Any kind of blockage causes a high value. Pneumatics are incredibly difficult. So I kind of understand where they're coming from, where they're having problems with it.
Yeah, the first one was definitely the pneumatics thing, but the second one, they haven't said. They've said that it was a ground system thing. It could have very well been that the pneumatics thing, but I'm not sure that they've actually come out and said specifically, because there's lots of ground system stuff. It could be anything, but I don't know. It very well could be the thing that they were having issues with for sure.
I did like the sound.
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to talk about.
Like,
yeah,
it sounded like it was sucking itself back in.
It was a big sound.
Yeah, it was like it was like, if you've ever been next to like a bonfire, you cover it in gasoline or lighter fluid or something, and you light it, and it's like, whoosh. It was like that, only way more.
It was way louder.
It was enough to set off a lot of the remote cameras. Mine set off. I had a 30-second exposure. I was going to, just get as much of a trail as I could, from just whenever it ignited or the camera heard its first sound, 30 seconds. I'm not sure how far I could have gotten into the sky, but I know multiple people. Did yours fire, Matt?
Yep, I posted them for some weird reason, I guess because the exposure or something. They turned out really green. I had a lot of really green haze on them, and I ended up posting them. And then obviously talking with Scott, he let me in on some of the little secrets of the color wheel. I was like, oh, okay.
The temperature, like changing the temperature on it.
Yeah, so he was like, you just got to go by, this color plus this color equals this color. You got to integrate that into your edits. And I was like, I didn't even think about that. I didn't think about the colors that you don't see.
Ah.
Yeah, if it's green, you're missing red, so you have to add red in.
Go in, and I actually ended up taking down the yellow, and it completely took all that green away. I just haven't posted them because for some reason when I go to save them, they're still saving really, really noisy. So I just haven't posted them yet, but I did get some really good shots.
Seth said that his fired, but they came out unfocused.
Yeah, mine were focused, mine were sharp. It was all good, but it just doesn't. I just can't get where they're just too noisy.
Tucker said there was a similar abort at Vandenberg and had a 6 to 7 month delay. Okay, I don't remember that. That must have been a long time ago, or maybe back like when all I cared about was SpaceX. That was a time. There was a time that that was the case.
They kind of sucked all the air out of the room for a good like 2 or 3 years.
And and to be fair, they still do with a lot of people. Like a lot of people, when they're just getting into rockets, it's because of SpaceX. You kind of got to hand it to them. They're good at bringing new people in. But after a while, I mean, you kind of got to love them all.
You can only watch so many Falcon 9 launches before you're like, okay, so I've seen this
Starlink.
100 times now.
Hey, another Starlink.
Yeah, it's another Starlink, guys. Hey, how do we want an article? No, I'm not going to copy paste that one from the last one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I texted the group chat this morning, because I'm sitting in my car after the launch and editing, and I texted the group chat. I was like, "So, am I waiting on an article on this one?" Because we like to do a thing, and it's a common thing where before you post a photo, because you never know, you might have a great photo that people really like, and so you want to have your article in that tweet. So you'll wait for the article, so when you tweet it out, it gets more coverage. And Matt was like, I can copy paste it if you need me to, and I was like, yeah, I know. I could just sum it up in a tweet.
That's tweet fodder, man.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Let's go back to where were we? I think I was going to show. This is what I got, and I was happy with it, but I am anxious to try again because I do have some blown out bits down here.
Yep.
I was trying to channel my inner fire poi photographer, because I used to shoot fire spinners a lot, and I love doing that. It's just a little bit different because when you have a fire spinner, that fire source is constantly moving, and so you do like a 1 or 2 second exposure at like f 7.1, I think is usually where I'd start, maybe f9 or something, and ISO just nothing, and you just try to hold your camera as still as possible. The beauty behind that is, even though it's a long exposure, the person spinning isn't usually lit up well enough to really be able to see. You might see kind of a blur of them, but regardless of if your camera's on a tripod or you're holding it in your hand, they're moving anyway. So there's no way. The only way to freeze them, which is also fun, you throw a flash into the mix. So you put a flash on a tripod off to the side, and you have one of those little remotes that's in the hot shoe on your camera, which would normally trigger the flash that's mounted there, but that triggers the flash that's over there. So that's how you freeze people, even on a 1 or 2 second.
So when you were saying that, it looked like you were trying to adjust your sunglasses when you were explaining that.
Yeah.
There you go, bud. There you go. Okay, they're straight now.
Yeah. So I think on the next attempt, I'm gonna go maybe just, I don't know. It's tricky because the darker you go with your exposure, the harder it is to bring out the darker details. But
all those details,
yeah, all that noise.
I'm sorry, I'm actually talking like I know what's happening because I actually took a picture. A friend loaned me a camera.
Yeah.
And a lens.
Do you have it? Did you post it on Twitter?
I did not, because I don't know how to do all the putting a thing down, a watermark down there and all that jazz. I don't know how to do that stuff. I'm super noob, but I can pull it up.
Yeah, you can do put it on your background like you did before.
Yeah, well, that's what I had. So let me pull that up then.
I wonder if I can full screen you real quick.
I bet we can.
I don't know if that's possible. I could put you in the waiting room. There you go.
That's possible.
That's still looks
and
like crap.
I'm impressed. Well,
that still looks like garbage.
If you can see, look harder. If anybody's ever seen Lion King.
So, yes. So I tried. I have another picture that I played around with, but there's the a vent. Oh, you can see it in this picture. Okay, so there's a vent over to the
the
left-hand side there.
The flame stack, left on.
Yeah, the flame stack. That's actually burning off excess hydrogen. I got a couple of shots because I knew it was going to happen, that after that abort happened, that thing was going to go just like crazy. So I got like the 40-foot fireball coming out of that guy as well in a picture.
And that's one of those things
I haven't played with it yet.
You don't see in the stream. Like, as far as I know, I can try to.
They go way too close in on the stream. Like they want to show that close up to the
I can try
rocket.
to roll that forward a little bit. Because I don't. Well, at this angle, yeah, there it is. It's right there.
There's the fire stack.
Okay, so from this angle, it's there. I want to. Oh, did I go
Yeah,
back?
it's way off to the left, so it
Okay,
looks
I
like
see
it's
it.
right up on the rocket in that picture.
But you don't get to see the big flame up.
yeah, you don't see
Yeah.
the big flare up. It got huge.
Yeah, it was
right after
big.
the abort
Yeah, I was
because it was burning off all the extra hydrogen.
hmm Yeah, I was trying to turn my camera and get situated. I just couldn't. Yeah. So I mean, bummer. We get to see another fireball, so that's kind of interesting. That'll be
It'll
fun.
launch.
Yeah. Oh, they'll get off. It's just, I mean, we were saying it before even the first attempt that Delta is a tricky beast.
She's finicky. She
Yeah.
has to have exact right conditions to fly.
Yeah.
Kind of like my wife.
Seth said that he got it in the video that he shared. You got it on Twitter there, Mr. Seth? I think I'm done with this. I can use this tab to I'm going to go look up Seth. It better not be too far down, bro. Bear with me, folks.
Well, I was certainly disappointed that it lit and it looked like it was going to go, and then they scrubbed because it was going to be my very first attempt at a streak shot.
Oh.
I was
Drop from the
really
beach?
looking forward to
As
it.
is, I'm sure that was a short streak.
No, I got nothing. Nothing at all.
Here we go. And then, here it comes. Doesn't it get bigger than that?
Yeah, it got a lot bigger than that. Like,
There it
There it
goes.
yeah.
There it goes.
Like that thing went crazy. Like it took a few seconds for the excess hydrogen to purge through the line, but once
Yeah.
it did, it got huge.
Let's see that one more
Phantom was
time.
Escaping.
From where we were at the press site, about the time it got huge is when the first sounds were hitting us. So it's a few seconds delay, like because sound propagation through air is not all that great.
Oh, let's see if he's got the sound on here. I shouldn't have muted it.
Yeah. Here's some
Let's see.
crickets. There was audio.
Yeah. It actually sounded rather immediate. Did you align that audio there, Seth? Yeah, I think that's
And for all the people who were saying, "Oh, the engine didn't launch," I got confirmation. No, it doesn't make that big of a plume if the engine doesn't actually ignite. So it ignites in order, going from basically right to left in the way they ignite. So this one, the one that's all the way to the right, has to ignite for the core to ignite, and then the core has to ignite for the one all the way to the left to ignite.
Thank you for sharing that. I will retweet that. And it was impressive how loud that was. I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
So
it
are
was
you
super
saying
loud.
that the flare stack, like if it had launched, would the flare stack still flare up like that or no?
No, it wouldn't have, because the excess hydrogen would have been burned off by the rocket itself.
Okay. I mean, 'cause at that time, I'd be more concerned with, catching liftoff and all that. I
Yeah.
should mute that. But I was just thinking, if there was an opportunity, I would like to try to grab a shot of that. Oh,
It
what
might be
up?
worth a spare camera.
S Padre in the house. Good to see you,
What?
Gene.
Space Padre!
Yeah.
Welcome.
All right, so let's talk about SAOCOM, because we'd been looking forward to this one for a long time, as a lot of you know, in case you don't. This was the first polar launch out of Cape Canaveral since one fell onto Cuba and killed a cow.
Mhm.
And that's why...
Which is why we don't do
He
those.
deserved it.
Yeah. He deserved it.
It was a communist cow, so.
Yeah. So yeah, we're looking forward to this because it's neat. It's novel. There was a land landing. Let's see. How's the sound on this?
You can hear helicopters.
Oh, that's right. So you had the helicopters just kind of hovering around you, right?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Here it comes. Here comes the roar.
Yeah, there's that rumble.
Crank it. So you could tell a definite difference in this one compared to the others, I'm guessing, right? Like in terms of like the direction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And Matt, Jordan, you were on the beach too?
Yes, I went out to Cherry Down, which is just to the south of Jetty Park. And it was okay. So I've seen a lot of launches. I've been watching launches, not in person, but been watching a lot of launches since space shuttle era. And this was by far for me, like, it's going to be the most memorable just because the rocket flew directly in front of me and then up over my head. And then when it came back down, it ignited over my head and then flew back down directly in front of me.
Yeah.
Which is not something you get normally, because normally they're going out into the Atlantic Ocean. You're never going to see that rocket. Once it's gone, it's gone. You could even hear engine cutoff. You could hear the boost back burn. You could hear all of that stuff all the way up and all the way back down. And then for me, one of the more interesting things, we were so close to the landing zone, that sonic boom wasn't a boom. It was a pap, pap.
Yes.
Is what it felt like to me. It was so close that it didn't have enough time for that energy to create the boom. It just was a pap, pap. It sounded like fireworks going off, or is punchy. It's not so much that deep rumble that you hear all the way over here in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're 50 miles. So about 7 minutes after the launch or the landing, we would hear that boom.
Right.
And it would shake windows and it would sound like a bomb going off or something. But being really close to the rocket, you don't get that bomb going off sound. It's the very almost quiet pap pap.
It was loud, scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, well, what's funny is
I find it amazing is, you know what's happening, you know it's coming, and it still scares you every single time.
I was looking through a viewfinder, so I wasn't expecting it.
I knew, yeah, I always, it's coming. But like, what's funny is like, a lot of people got some good footage of the landing, especially Cosmic Perspective, Ryan and Mary Liz. They always get amazing footage, but nobody was able to keep their camera steady. Whenever the sonic boom got to them, you see it just like a jump in the camera, and then they recenter. It's so startling when it gets to you. Now
you don't expect it, because like, from our perspective, when that sonic boom happens, that rocket's only maybe 300 or 400 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
It happens so close to the ground that it's like,
wait, the sonic boom happens? I thought the sonic boom happened pretty high up. It just takes a long time to get to you.
That might be the case.
It's when they cross from supersonic down to subsonic.
Yeah, I mean, they called transonic probably 15 seconds before it landed, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well,
from what I was listening to, but you also have to think I'm listening to the stream and not the launch
delayed,
net.
yeah.
So I have that little bit of delay. So it might have been like a 45-second delay. But for me, like when I heard the sonic boom, the rocket was only like 400 or 500 feet off the ground at most.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, which was the case for us. That's interesting. So that's like the first time that from the beach that the sonic boom gets to you before it landed. That's interesting.
And that's because the sonic boom happened directly above you instead of somewhere out over yonder.
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to ask you, Matt, Jordan, is so you've been at launches at the press site, and how did the rumble compare to being at the press site? Did you get a little bit of that popcorn that we're used to at the press site?
Yes, you do get a little bit. The closer you are to the rocket, the closer you're going to get to hear that crackle that we always talk about. We're all amazed by the crackle, and it's because it's this crazy. It almost sounds like electricity, and you can feel it in your chest, and you do get a lot of that crackle. The closer you get, the more you get it, and most videos don't really do it justice as to how loud that crackle really is. But Heavy was my first like in-person launch, Falcon Heavy, and it was I was on Max Brewer, so I was like maybe 6 miles away, and that crackle, you could still hear it. With the smaller rockets, though, it's not 27 engines going at one time, so it's decreased in loudness by probably a factor of 0.5.
Yeah. Seth pointed out that where he was he got the boom after the landing, but he was also like 2 or 3 miles south of you, because if I remember correctly, he was down closer to Ranjan, kind of near.
Yeah, I was in between the two of them.
Yeah. Well, okay. So where did the boom hit for you, Becca? Do you remember?
About 20 seconds after it landed.
Oh, really? Okay. 20 seconds.
If I'm remembering correctly. Maybe not quite 20 seconds.
Oh. Weird.
But it seemed really quick.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like right as it was. It's hard to remember exactly, but I think it was right as it was dipping below the tree line for us. Let's see. So I wanted to share. Let's see. We got photos. We showed Becca's video of it peekabooing, and I thought among us here, I thought that Matt got the best landing photos. I mean,
they're very good, Matt.
These were very good.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
You did a great job.
Yeah, look at these.
Usually I butcher them, but this time I was like,
no,
oh,
that's not
look
true.
at that.
These are very good.
And the money shot, like the one where the legs are coming out, I think like you were perfect. Like these, you might see a little bit of motion blur. It kind of, it's a plague, because you're trying to get this in your handheld. You can't. I mean, you could be on a tripod, but it's a little difficult to, get up under your camera, and then it's just so different when you're shooting on a tripod. It's just so much easier to have your camera in your hand. Of course, now you have a gimbal.
And even
so
then,
you get
it's
to try
coming
that.
down so fast. Like it comes
So
down
fast.
much faster than you think it does.
It's very fast. I was really scared.
Like my wife was standing next to me. My kids were playing in the ocean. They weren't even caring.
Oh,
But
really?
my wife was standing right next to me, and she's like, "Is it gonna stop? Is it gonna stop? Oh no, it's gonna blow up." And I'm like, no. Like, this is the computer's got it, babe. If it was gonna blow up, it'd be an LZ ocean over there.
Yeah.
They did have an extra LZ, which is what the helicopters were for, by the way. We were kind of chit-chatting about the helicopters. They had basically they were running port ops and making sure that they had a sight of everything that was going on in the area, because the LZ was literally like 300 or 400 yards offshore. Like
Right.
they were going to
like
land it real close.
The alternate, yeah. Well, and that's how Falcon 9 does. Is like when it's coming down, it's actually aiming for a spot in the water, and then once everything's okay, then it shimmies on over.
Yeah, it shimmies over.
But it's always impressive to see, because we don't get these all the time. I mean, you get them for the space station resupply missions, and then some low Earth orbit missions, and at polar orbits, most of those are low Earth orbit. They're just polar also.
Yeah, they're super low Earth orbit.
Yeah.
if you will.
I know there's some satellites, probably to go out a little further that they wouldn't, but whenever they do these polar orbits, I'd say most of them we're going to see return to land.
'Cause the last one was CRS-20, and that was at night, so nobody was.
That's true.
Yeah, CRS-20 was at night, and nobody got pictures because it was at night.
Yeah, I was disappointed with mine. I had actually talked about me and my roommate and Becca were hanging out, and I was going through some of Cosmic Perspective's videos and saw the one that I shot for them, and I was like, I wish that I had just focused on that video instead of my photos, because my photos didn't turn out great, and that video could have been a lot better had I just actually operated the camera rather than just pointing it in that direction, because I wasn't sure. I kind of had to zoom out a little bit because I wasn't exactly sure where it was. There was no like obvious sign of where the landing zone was. Yeah. So that was, but to see this thing fall out of the sky is incredible.
You see it falling out of the sky. It looks like something out of a war movie. It absolutely, you think it's the end of the world. Or if you didn't know what was happening, you would think it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the closest that I think we'll get to like the movies where they see something hurtling towards them,
Mm-hmm.
But it was coming down faster than it was leaving, and I was really scared.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it does come down faster than it goes.
Because it's not flying past the speed of sound until it gets past max Q point.
Right.
up in so it doesn't go transonic until max Q, which is, a couple miles up.
Right.
Whereas coming back down, it goes transonic a couple miles up, but it's still booking all the way down.
Right. Okay, so if you weren't following, like if you don't follow the fleet as closely as some of us do, so Miss Tree and Mischief, they parted ways. Mischief went south. Actually, they both went south first, right? Help me if I'm getting this wrong, but they both went south first to catch the fairings for SAOCOM, and then about the time they got there, Miss Tree turns around and goes north. And, of course, we look to Julia and Gavin, SpaceX fleet updates is Gavin. We look to them to kind of, they're like the best speculators on what's going on, of course. And I'd actually talked to Julia about it, kind of like around remote setup or something. We were talking about what they might be doing, and could they catch and then scoop? And of course, she pointed out that we did see them, or somebody saw them. Somebody posted photos and video of them practicing out there. It might have even been Kyle. I think
it was Kyle.
Yeah. Of them practicing with two fairings. And so that was probably preparation for this eventuality where they're going to have two missions so close together that the sisters can't be together. Yeah. So they did.
I think it was good practice. They ended up scooping both of them.
Yeah, which I wasn't even sure was possible, to be honest. I thought that once, they had their scoop net, and if they scooped one, then the scoop net's occupied. But apparently not. They figured out a way to.
I think that's what they were practicing in Kyle's pictures that he posted up. I think that's what they were practicing, is that they were practicing transitioning a scooped fairing from that scoop net into the hold net, and so that scoop net is now usable again.
Right. And I should point out, just in case anybody doesn't know, follow Kyle Montgomery on Twitter, because
absolutely
he is he's one of the, speaking of scoops, he's definitely out there with getting the scoops on the fleet.
He's everywhere.
He's everywhere.
At all times.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard of him talking about sleep ever. I don't think he does.
He doesn't need it.
He's team no sleep.
He's running on just excitement.
Rocket fuel.
Yeah,
he's running on excitement and rocket fuel.
Because he's like 16 years old. He doesn't need sleep. I'm just kidding.
Well, there's that too.
He's not really that young.
He looks that young.
I know.
Don't we wish we all could?
So
what's really funny about this picture here, you're like, when Julia was like, "Oh, look at the logo," and I'm like, "What logo?"
Right.
The logo got burnt off.
Because look at the difference between the side with the logo on it, and then the side with the American flag on it.
Perfect.
These colors don't run.
I wonder if that's just an artifact of the way they clamshell apart in the atmosphere. That one is going to be falling with its face down, and then the other one's probably following with its back facing down.
Well, no, they orient them. They have thrusters on them to orient them belly down, like they come down like a boat,
like what they need to.
Yeah. So it's gotta be something like where this one is a decal.
They come down like Indiana Jones does out of the raft.
Yeah, in fact, I'm sure it was modeled after Indiana Jones.
Those things
Someone who's good with Photoshop.
A lot of things are modeled after Indiana Jones, and Elon seems like the kind of guy to let that fly. I think that now that you're mentioning that they do have the thrusters, and I was just whatever, but I think it's probably that the other decal for just this mission is like a poly or just a quick on, like you would get done to your car.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this is like painted on. And as we've talked about before, it's probably depressed into the metal slightly so that that paint stays and doesn't get charred off.
Right, because this is permanent. Like the American flag will always be on one half,
on that one
and
half,
then they'll have the patch for the mission on the other half, if they have it. Because with Starlink, a lot of times they don't even bother.
Yeah, they don't even put a mission patch on there anymore. They standard Starlink logo. I'm surprised they haven't pressed that one into metal and just reused those same fairings over and over.
Yeah.
I mean, like I put in my article about SAOCOM and I talked about Starlink in that article. They're getting a lot of reuse, a lot of reusability that they wouldn't get if they were just doing standard customers. A standard customer is not going to say, hey, you've never flown a rocket 5 times before. I'm not going to put my multi-million-dollar payload on a rocket that hasn't flown 5 times before, and that's what we're doing now.
Right.
So the fact that SpaceX has Starlink as a perpetual customer is really working out in their favor, because now they said these rockets can fly 10 times. Now they're proving how far they can actually push the technology.
Yeah.
They might get 15 out of them before they have to retire the rockets.
And without putting anybody else's payload at risk. It's
absolutely.
really brilliant the way that it's working out. I mean, obviously the purpose of Starlink is to fund their Mars ambitions, but it's really working out that they're able to test out the reusability.
It's like the perfect test bed.
Yeah.
It's the perfect test bed.
Yeah, it's beautiful. What is the next thing? See, I just forget. I just put these in a line. Okay, we had Starlink this morning. So this is my liftoff shot.
Love the reflection, man.
It's very nice.
The wind was extremely calm, making for a very hot morning. And I was really hoping that that was going to burn off the haze on my lens. See, this one turned out good. So I was not able to make it out for camera reset, the remote camera reset. But this one was on the south side of the pad. So as the sun's coming up, the lens did get a little bit of love from the sun, I'm guessing. I mean, you do see a little bit of a glow around it, and I'm guessing there's probably just a little bit of haze. Maybe the lens just needed to be cleaned off or something. But then you go to this one, and I really like the framing. I cropped it in a little bit. I actually had the road down below, but like I was just messing around, and I brought the crop up where it looked like it was just launching out of clouds. And I really wish that the sun had burned this off, but the camera is, well, you can tell where the sun is because this side of the rocket is lit up. So the sun is behind the camera on this one. So it didn't get enough heat to get that, get that fog off the lens.
It's still so pretty though.
I really enjoy it. I'm probably going to do it again. I mean, it's not, there's nothing special about it. It's not like a framing that nobody else could do, but I really like it, and I think I'm probably going to try that again the next 39A launch. And Matt did not make it out, but he lucked out. Look at this, and this is real, y'all. Okay,
no Photoshop.
Look, no Photoshop. He says it says it right there in the tweet.
If you look at my other picture that I posted of that before, because that's cropped in. So if you look at the other picture, not that one, that's the trail of the.
Oh, should I go back to your page?
And the jet. If you looked at the same picture that's zoomed out, because today was my son's birthday, so I was excited because he got a rocket launch on his birthday. So that first picture right there.
Oh, the first one.
The first one.
See it? Yeah.
I didn't even notice it.
Oh yeah, you thought it was like a smudge or.
When I was editing it, I was editing it on my iPad. I didn't even see it. I was just making sure there was no more spots because I had a bunch of dust spots all over my sensor. So I got all the dust spots off, and I would just and then I posted. And after the fact, I was like, did I miss a dust spot? And I go to zoom in. I'm like, that's a darn airplane.
Daggum.
Dadgummit.
I like this, man. I like the got a little bit of the foliage in there.
A shrimpage.
That's good. Yeah, that's some lucky stuff right there, man. This little plane flying through. Yeah, I didn't realize it was cropped in from that other image because I saw this one. I was like, you lucky dog.
Yeah, this crowd was just like, what? A plane? Wow, talk about timing.
So there's not really much, it's Starlink, and that's not to say that I'm not excited about Starlink. I can't wait for them to get, I don't know, like 20 or 30 batches up. But we're kind of in the slog right now. We're just, we get to see launches all the time, and that's fantastic. But when it comes to the payload, well, a lot of times we like to be excited about the payload too. It's really cool when there's like
being excited about the payload makes watching the launch so much more fun.
Yeah, and there's a lot more interest, a lot more energy around the launch. But and
we get patches.
Right? Yeah, we don't.
You get patches. There's swag to be had. Yeah.
Nothing beats being there and getting to feel it. There is just nothing better than being close to a rocket launch. But there's just not much to say about it. When it's like it was beautiful. Falcon 9 went up, landed perfectly. But this right here. So if you guys aren't following Flight Club, you should, and photographers, you should become a patron because you'll have access to his photography kit. But he's built this website up that it's so just stupid cool. But he's got this new trick that he can do where I need to move this. All right, yeah, check this out. So he's showing you the goal of this video is, look how little fuel is left whenever Falcon 9 lands. I feel like I want to skip ahead a little bit. And it's got all the, the throttle and acceleration stats and everything. And look at the velocity. So if we think about, physics and stuff, so it's slowing down as it's going uphill, right? And then it reaches the peak, and then it starts picking that speed back up. And I don't think it's back in the atmosphere yet, but it just falls faster and faster. We got 0 acceleration and 0 throttle. And obviously you can see the red line. That's where the engine's going to light up again. And the white dot is where it would land if nothing was done right now. If nothing else, no other things acted on it. And then now with the engine, now you see that white dot just moved short of the drone ship. And now the white dot's moving because the atmosphere is acting on it. Right, so it comes where it's really close to the drone ship, but it's not exact on it, right? And then, bam, and now look at the fuel that's left.
Golly.
It's like nothing.
And that's why their launches have to be instantaneous for the most part, is because once they fuel the rocket up, if there's any kind of a hold that has that rocket sitting on the pad fueled for more than like 45 minutes, they have to completely empty it and refill it, because the liquid oxygen it's actually a sludge that they put in. It's just a couple of degrees above freezing, so much so that it's more of a sludge than liquid. And that is oxygen, and it has to be at that's why we see all of the steam coming. That's all condensation steam coming off of that rocket.
It allows them to fit more in there. It's super densified.
They call it super densified fluids. Basically, both the RP1 that they load it with and the oxygen are just a couple of degrees above freezing when the rocket actually launches. And that is the only reason they're able to re-land the rocket. If they didn't have access to those super densified fluids, they'd never be able to land these rockets. There would not be enough.
Or they'd have to, the alternative would be they would have to launch smaller payloads, because
there would be a smaller payload to LEO.
Yeah, exactly.
And when it comes to rocketry, everything is about how much delta V do you have, how much delta V, and your delta V is a function of how much fuel do you have. It's how much velocity can you change, whether that's slowing down or speeding up or changing direction. Everything requires a delta V. Those who play Kerbal, they know all about delta V and how limiting that is to a mission.
I mean, I usually just guess when I play Kerbal. There's these delta V calculators out there, and I've tried to mess with them. I usually just end up building just the biggest thing that I can get off the ground, and then put docking ports on it so that I can refuel them. Yeah, I figured that out one day, and that was very difficult. That's a good way to spend. Like, I'm gonna go to Mars or Duna, but I'm gonna refuel my rocket before I go. That's a good way to spend all day and not actually accomplish anything. Because docking two spacecraft together, it gives you a lot of appreciation for like the early days and how difficult. I mean,
rendezvous is the most difficult thing we do in space.
Yes.
Thank you, Buzz Aldrin.
Yes, Buzz Aldrin.
His nickname among the astronaut corps has been and will always be Dr. Rendezvous, because he is a doctor and he invented orbital rendezvous.
He literally wrote the book on it.
Oh yeah.
He wrote a book on rendezvous. All right, let's see. What else? What's next? Oh, yeah, speaking of Starlink still, I just thought this was cool. Shared by Joey Roulette on Twitter. This is just a GIF. So it says that a random GIF showing the range of movement for Starlink's user terminal is in the website's source code. So they were digging around in the source code for the website and found this file. So that's kind of neat. So it can angle to point directly up, and then obviously, down like it is, and rotate. So it can point literally any direction using just those two axes. So that's interesting. What is next? Oh yeah, the certain water tower flew or something.
Woohoo, grain silo.
So obviously you guys know that NASA Spaceflight has been covering this stuff very, very closely, and Mary Boca Chica gal is down there day in and day out filming this stuff to get these kinds of... They have a 24-hour
live stream.
Basically, it's not 24 hours. She is out there filming almost all the time. Like she has time to sleep, I'm sure, but she is out there a lot. And then they edit together photos. I believe it's Jack Beyer that edits the photos together. And they put out a new video update like every day. But I bet anybody watching this show or listening already knows that. Although the idea is to hopefully bring people in that aren't already plugged in this much. So maybe you're out there. You didn't know that there's a place you can go to see videos on what's new with Starship literally every day. That's NASA Spaceflight.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of good people over
there. And then, Elon, he was replying to Austin that SN6 flew a similar... Elon had a little bit of a typo there. Flew a similar hop to SN5,
jet lag,
but it was a much smoother and faster operation. So that's really the only thing that I've seen up to this point as far as like an update. I don't think he chimed in anymore on this thread, although Everyday Astronaut, of course, usually is the one to get answers out of him. So tie into that.
I did notice there was a lot less fire that kept burning after the engine shut off.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever the leak or whatever they had going inside the actual octaweb or
whatever they call it,
dodecaseptahead, whatever it's called now, right? That thing, the grid where all the engines are. The last one on SN5, there was a leak of some type.
Oh, you're talking about SN5. Oh, okay.
Yeah, in SN5 there was a leak. SN6 didn't have that leak, or at least I haven't seen it in any of the videos, and it was painfully obvious after the engine shut down with SN5 that there was still fire going on inside of that compartment.
Right. So yeah, the work continues. This is another 150 meter hop. I believe the next thing, I don't know if they're going to do any other short hops like this. I think the next thing is to go way up. They're going to throw the flaps on there, right? And they're going to go way up there and try the belly flop. I think.
Oh boy.
Yes.
That's gonna be fun to watch.
Yes.
Oh.
I hope they rig it up with cameras, all over it,
There are as many cameras on SN6 here and on SN5 previously as there are on a full Falcon 9 rocket.
Yeah.
So,
but they don't show them all.
They don't show them all. They show the interesting stuff. They show the stuff that's really going to draw people in.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Like, explosions when those happen.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's rocketry. It happens.
It does happen, yeah. Yeah, and it's like the only company where we can really see that sort of thing. Okay, kind of shifting gears because this is something that's definitely not local to us. I guess Starship isn't either, but, SpaceX is. So Rocket Lab they kind of built up to an announcement they were going to make today, and it actually ended up, depending on where you're at in your interest in the space industry, you may have been like, oh, I don't, what's so important about this? Actually, first I want to show this. Look at this transition. That's 2 different launches, right? That was cool. A night one to a day one. And look at that. Look at how small Electron is and how they can...
one person.
They can just rotate that.
Rotate that.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel. It must be the lightest thing.
It's because it's all carbon fiber, and they can just rotate that thing.
Yep.
So
it looked like there was more than one person rotating.
There were, but still, on something that size, you expect it would need a machine to do that rotation, not 3 people standing there.
All you need is leverage.
The guy at the end looks like he's taking a break.
Yeah, he looks like he's leaning on it, but I think he has his hand on the actual grips that they're using to do that rotation.
Okay, so just some clips. So what the announcement was about their Photon satellite platform. So they have it's called a kick stage. It's basically like a third stage where after the first stage burns and then the second stage burns, and they can mount all these things. It's typically the kick stage, so they put whatever the payload is on top of the kick stage. But the idea has been to have Photon be like this platform that companies that want to have a small satellite launch to do whatever you want, but they maybe don't have a ton of money to invest in this. What they're trying to be like an all-encompassing solution for anybody, whatever you want to study, and it doesn't even have to be around Earth. They claim that they can get you to the moon, they can get you to Mars, they can get you to Venus.
We launch a pressing flight in there?
Yes. Yes.
All right, I got to make 3 now.
Because I imagine it does have to be light. That's going to be the trick. But
send it right to the moon.
It sounds to me like the Photon becomes your satellite, right? Like you need a satellite that can do this, this, and this. You don't need all these extra bells and whistles. You just needed to do these things, and it's like a third stage that is just launching itself, that has a couple little doohickeys attached to it, and you can go to other planets. I don't know if you're going to be able to get to Jupiter or whatever. I'm not sure that Rocket Lab or that the Electron has that much Delta V. Not well versed enough to know. Maybe somebody else is. But it seems like small groups, universities or whatever, they could send, like, we don't have to wait on NASA to get something approved, go through the process of, getting, having people submit these ideas and then they have to dwindle down to a few ideas, and then they pump the money into that. It can be anybody that's got the money to buy a Photon and put whatever instruments on there that they want, and they can go just about anywhere and study whatever they want. And it can be this niche thing because it's not expensive enough to be like, okay, well, if we're gonna do this, well, we're gonna need some other people to get on board with us. So now we got to fit their instrument on board, and then that's not enough money. So we got to get all these other different people and organizations to contribute money to make this kind of conglomerate satellite. It could be like this, like a small group that has, how much is it to launch an Electron? It's like $10 million, $15 million. And then it's probably whatever, 5 or 10 on top of that. That's not a lot of money to have like a full up science mission to go to Venus, and because Venus didn't get a whole lot of love. And it would be.
It did in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah. Yeah. Russia managed to land something on there. Did we? Was it we?
I believe we have photos from the surface, but I think most of ours came from going through the atmosphere. But by the time it got to the surface, the camera was broken.
Right. So that's just really exciting to me, that the idea that it's not just space agencies can get into this and just be like, we just want to try this one thing, and Rocket Lab's going to be able to get them there. I don't know how much it is, but it seems like something that if they're mass producing the Photon platform, and then the instruments are like known instruments, it's not something they have to completely design from the ground up. They would design the instrument to fit the package instead of designing the package to fit the instrument. Right, and I think that Rocket Lab is able to do that, right?
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. So, I mean, with a lot of these instruments, it's just a matter of shifting the electronics around so that it fits in that tighter package that the Photon's going to provide. Mm-hmm. But I think this is a great thing. You see, like you were talking about, when these flagship NASA missions, those things are planned for like 20 years before they happen. The smaller missions, those missions have to be planned for 5 and 10 years in advance. Having something this cheap that is scalable will allow much smaller missions to provide a lot more data that, maybe they didn't fly that instrument on this mission because it didn't make the cut. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe they can just spend that extra $20 million and say, oh, okay, now we are going to fly this mission, and we're only going to fly our instrument.
Right.
Instead of having to fly, like a rover to Mars that has instruments from all over the world on it. Because that's the only way to get those instruments to Mars.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So someone's got an idea. They don't have to wait to be accepted by NASA or ESA.
Absolutely.
Or
they don't have to go through that whole process. They cut off those years. They can have an idea and within a year have the instrument on the way.
Right. Yeah.
Is what I'm envisioning with this kind of thing. And especially when you're talking about science. With the science, you have the idea, you want to move forward as quickly as possible. A thing that they have in NASA, and it's kind of a well-known issue, is that these people will work for their entire career and be on one project, mm-hmm. one Mars rover, one flagship mission. They'll only do that. With this kind of rapid response, say, to the science, mm-hmm. you're going to have people who have a plethora of missions under their belt as operators, as directors, what have you. So their careers can actually fly higher as a result and not be restricted to, I worked on New Horizons
or
for
Cassini
20 years, or Cassini for 20 years, or Juno for 10 years.
Right.
So it'll allow the amount of knowledge to grow exponentially if that science can fly at a more rapid pace.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it. I think Rocket Lab's a great company. They're not all about the, making humans, multiplanetary and stuff like that, but they are about enabling smaller organizations to get their stuff into space and cheaply. And on Flight 17, which we just had Flight 14 on their return to flight, which will make your head spin. They did that so fast. They had that failure 2 months ago, mm-hmm. something like that, and they already had their return to flight. It went perfectly, and then so we got Flight 15, 16, and then on number 17 they're going to try to recover the booster.
And that's the mid-air helicopter recovery, right?
Right. And so that should bring down cost. Hopefully, hopefully they pass the savings on to you. I assume that they will. Yeah, so yeah, everybody loves Rocket Lab. They're super cool. They have black rockets.
They're super cool. They're very slick. They name each mission something kind of funny and punny, which is absolutely just, I love it.
Oh, and by the way, Peter Beck was on the Orbital Mechanics podcast, the latest one. So if you want to hear him talk about that stuff, and he did talk about the how the naming works. So if you're interested in that, check out the Orbital Mechanics podcast. As we are really approaching an hour, I still wanted to mention the SLS solid rocket booster test that they just did.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
That thing lights up so instantaneously.
Chief has 5 seconds.
That's where, like, when you see ULA launching any of their configurations that have a solid, you see it jump off the pad. That's that instantaneous lighting. You're just seeing it in a different way with this
Chief has 20
booster.
seconds.
Right. Okay, so we're not gonna just play the whole thing. Okay, well, we can see the flame out at least.
Plus 120 seconds.
And
They've been
then-
digging that canyon for a while. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, you look at it and you're like, oh, that's the exhaust pad.
right.
Activate quench tool command forward.
Because
and aft
there's not
CO2.
really a whole lot there to say, okay, I can gauge the size.
And look at this arm
Yeah.
that reaches in. It's
Spray.
like, I'm gonna get you wet. Getting you wet. It literally
Straight CO2.
goes up. Oh, is it not water?
Yeah. It's
No, I
CO2.
think that's
It feels
CO2.
like a gas.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so they go in there and they do that. All right, well, okay, so that's cool. So this is the 5-segment version of the shuttle SRB, basically. I'm sure there's more differences to it, but that's essentially what it is. It's a 5-segment version.
They've actually changed the formulation of the solid fuel since the shuttle program. I
Oh, okay.
had been hearing that on Brendan Burns' podcast. That we're talking about that.
Oh, right on. Okay. That would be. Are we there yet?
Are we there yet? Love it. Listen to it every Tuesday at 6:30
Yeah, that's
on NPR.
that has become one of my favorites. It reminded me of a test we saw a couple years ago, which looks very similar. This was the first Omega rocket, which the Omega rocket is intended to be basically one of these solid rocket boosters, but by itself, with a solid second stage and then a liquid third stage, I think.
Mhm.
All right, so check this out.
Woo.
See, that doesn't look normal.
No, that wasn't normal. That was the that looked like the entire expansion chamber just blowing
The-
off.
Yeah, the nozzle.
Yeah, the nozzle, the expansion chamber. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it was. It exploded.
Right.
Yeah, that's not supposed to happen.
No. And it was like,
Because that would you would instantaneously lose all of the thrust is developed inside of that chamber.
well, the thrust is developed through the length of the rocket.
Oh yes, with these particular, but they focus the thrust. It focuses the thrust. So would you would lose?
It's the vector control. That's what that is.
that vector control, yeah.
So you would lose control of your rocket. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You would lose vector control. It would drop thrust immediately if that were to happen in flight.
Well, I think
Like-
you'd still have your thrust. You just wouldn't be able to control what direction it's going.
Well, it's not just the thrust, right? So, like, yeah, it's burning all down the length of the rocket,
Mhm.
but inside of that rocket, at the very end, that expansion chamber is actually not just allowing the exhaust plume to expand out, but it's also focusing it.
Mhm.
When you lose that focus, you're losing a lot of the
Oh,
thrust
I see what
actually
you're
goes
saying.
away. And you can see the difference between like what we would need in inside of Earth's atmosphere versus what we would need in space when we watch, say, a Falcon 9 launch and you get to see the second stage and the first stage.
Mhm.
Those first stage, it's going to be a longer nozzle. It's very much more narrow, but that one that's firing in space, it's much more wide and it's a shorter nozzle than because it doesn't need to focus as precisely to overcome Earth's gravity.
or the pressure. It's
there's no pressure pushing in on it at all. So it needs to be longer. Thrust at that point.
So the nozzle has to be longer to keep that thrust focused behind you.
Yes.
Okay. Well, the point of hello, I don't know who you are. The point of bringing that up is I just thought it was odd what their response was, and this is a little over a year ago. Their response on Twitter was, Northrop Grumman successfully completed the test of Omega's first stage. The motor performed nominally, with an observation noted at the very end of test involving the aft exit cone of the nozzle.
That's a very nice way of putting it.
Oops. An observation. It was a whoopsie.
This was, and if you were paying attention, whenever this happened, this kind of became kind of a meme for a little while because of the way they were. Motor performed nominally with an observation noted. Is that another word for a failure? I don't know. It's just.
I mean, if they got the data they were looking for, then the test wasn't a failure.
Well, that's true. I mean, no test is really a failure because you will always learn.
Every test.
You will always learn something. It was just really funny how they worded it, and it's just interesting that's what they chose.
Unless the government drops your contract.
Unless the government drops your contract. Omega ended up being the last rocket they ever designed.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, they'll do just fine making boosters for the SLS. For now.
Sadly, I'm just not a big fan of using solids with people.
I can understand that.
We've been down that road before, and we saw the bad things that come from doing that. Mm-hmm. We need to stay away from solids. That's just my personal opinion. Having studied this stuff.
What does Starlink launch or Starliner launch with? I know it's Atlas, but does it have boosters?
I'm not sure.
They're definitely a lot smaller, of course, but
I'll have to give it a look. See, I don't know how to get out of your share screen to look at my screen.
I thought when the Starliner first launched, it didn't have SRBs on it. It was just the two mains. Yeah. I don't know if that's what they're going to do when they launch Crew or not.
Right.
But there was no.
Well, yeah. I think it probably was. If it was no boosters, then that's what it will be, because I'm pretty sure that the whole idea is to launch it as it will be.
Yeah.
With Crew, right? And little known thing that I often forget is that's actually one engine with two nozzles. You know that the RD-180? Yeah, it's interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the only reason I'm showing this now is because, if you watch the show frequently, you know that I usually have whatever the most recent launch was. I have it playing on the side, So I'm playing it now. I don't know if I'll keep this up. Maybe I won't do the latest launch replay thing, but yeah. So that was that. Not going to go through till landing because I think we are at the end, y'all. Anybody else have anything that they want to add, bring up? Anything we've omitted, forgotten? That's the thing that I listen to the Space Show. It's another podcast, and he always ends the show that way with his guests. He's like, "Is there anything that we've omitted or forgotten or otherwise left out?" Well, yeah, okay, that's true. Yeah, Seth made the point, but they do have an abort system which differs from the shuttle. Yeah, the shuttle did not have
this is very true. The shuttle did not have an abort system. I agree. But if we know that SRBs can be dangerous, we either need to engineer the heck out of them or we need to not use them.
Okay, yeah, Daryl said that the Atlas is in the N22 configuration, which is... obviously no fairing because it's a Starliner, and then that's two boosters and two RL10 upper stage engines. Is that right? RL10. Okay, so it does have two boosters.
And then it holds on to them for 20 seconds after burnout, which is actually a safety feature. So.
Oh, okay.
You are sacrificing some of your delta V that it takes to get into orbit and to move around with the rocket. You're sacrificing some of that to essentially tow 2 spent
Dead
boosters
weight,
for an extra 20 seconds.
Right.
But it does make it safer. You know, after they burn out, there are still residual products that are being produced.
Yeah.
And those that 20 seconds gives us time to flame out and go away.
Seth says safety so they don't fall into land. Is that because the trajectory would cause them to possibly fall into land?
It is a pretty low trajectory, and it goes right along the coast.
Right along the coast, yeah. I guess that makes sense.
That.
Yeah. Do they do the same thing for Cygnus when they're launching the Cygnus? Because I don't know. I know they did it at least once. They launched one Cygnus. Wait, Daryl says no. I don't know if that's to what I just said or what somebody said before. Still over water. Well, it's still over water. It's never over land, but could it, after booster SEP, could it spread out? You know, only one, the one on whichever side, on the coasts, on the land side, possibly. Seth said, I thought that's what they do. Heard it from Chris G, and he's Space Fabio. All right, that's a good spot to go out. Space Fabio. All right, well, thank you everybody in chat and everybody watching. Seth, Daryl, let's see, Kyle is there, Stephanie, thank you. I know Harry was there. He had to head out. Space Padre, Gene, thank you for checking in. Zach was in there. Thanks, y'all. Oh, and Klebby Harris was in there. Haven't seen you in a bit. Hey, come back next week, 10 o'clock. I have spoken to Trevor Malman. I don't know if next week will be the week, but he did say that he's down to be on the show. So that'll probably be a photography-heavy show. So tune in.
I saw his setup. He's got like 12 cameras he sets up for every launch.
And he did that.
He spreads himself so thin. I'm like, how do you do that?
Well, because
but
if you...
He's also using like extra equipment that he has designed using these Arduinos. Mm-hmm. And so he's able to fire multiple cameras at the same time with one button.
Exactly. That's what he was doing today when he was shooting the Starlink launch. He had a tripod with multiple cameras on it, and then you just have one button that triggers them all.
Uh-huh. So I was wrong. Yep. So as you can see, Starliner 2.
Oh, 2 boosters. Okay.
Yeah, it's in two solids.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Have a good week, and hopefully we'll see a Delta IV Heavy launch before next Thursday.
Let's pray.
Yes.
Shutdown sequence initiated. Shutting down.
Bam.